Hello and welcome to the Bliss Career Podcast, a podcast where we talk about everything career. I am your host, Dan Solomon, and in this podcast, I am bringing you interviews with people just like you, people who were once in your shoes. I'm also going to be talking with HR managers as well as people who are experts in their various fields. We have a lot of stuff to unpack today, so please sit tight and relax, and let's get to it then. Okay, Rahman, I'm really happy that you decided to join this call today. Thanks for taking the time.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, great. Awesome. So I wanted to say in the studio, but today I have Rahman Shaik with me, and he's currently working with ASML as an availability and reliability engineer. I don't really know what that means, so I'm just going to let him introduce himself. So please, Rahman, could you just take some time to introduce yourself, who you are, what you're currently doing, and where you're from?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Rahman Shaik, as Dan pointed out. I'm 26 years old, born and raised in India. I moved to Netherlands at the age of 20. And yeah, I went to do my master's at TU Delft. And now currently I'm working in Eindhoven for a semiconductor giant named ASML. And in my undergrad, I studied chemical engineering, and here in Netherlands at Delft, I studied petroleum engineering and a bit of geology together with Dan. That's how we know each other. Yeah, and over the last 2 years, I was a part of this traineeship program with Ormit on personal development. And as a part of it, I was working at the technical company, which is ASML. And now, since the last 6 months, I've been working full time with ASML after finishing my personal development traineeship program. So, yeah, that's in brief about myself. And further along in the podcast, we can talk about my exact role and other details.
Okay, awesome. Thanks again for that brief introduction. I did pick up something. So you studied chemical engineering and for your bachelor's, right?
Yeah.
And then you went on to study petroleum engineering
Yeah.
in TU Delft. I think that was when we met. I'm a bit interested to know like the transition from petroleum engineering to now working for a semiconductor industry company. Like how did that shift happen? What I would say influenced the decision to make such a bold step?
Well, I think it has to do with what I was looking for when I was in my undergrad. Chemical engineering was a nice platform to, have a piece of pie of every branch of engineering and sciences. And then I got really interested in petroleum, and I was really enthusiastic about the technical challenges in the petroleum industry. That really had my fascination. So I went with an open mind towards this study, which I didn't know until the last 2 years of my undergrad studies. And then at my undergrad, I still had, I'm in general like always curious about a lot of things. I find it difficult to just stay with one thing and just go in deep. So I just had this general curiosity, and that's what made me jump from chemical to petroleum engineering. Just technical and in general, just curiosity about how things work in a completely different area. So yeah, it was pretty easy for me. It was either choosing between material science, which also had my fascination, or petroleum industry. And after some doing some bit of internships and projects with the professors and industry in India, I realized I would be better off studying petroleum engineering, and that's how I got to Delft.
Okay. And when you were done with petroleum engineering, you decided, okay, this is the time to go into semiconductor industry, even if there is no connection between those two industries, right? What influenced your push?
Well, I actually didn't have that clarity, with that specific goal that I would go into semiconductor industry. After my master's, I was pretty happy with what I had learned, and I really enjoyed doing the 2 years at Delft and also the research. And then after that, I was thinking to myself, okay, well, what do I want to make my next step in? Is it going to be in petroleum industry, which, as you know, is quite volatile, and yeah, the price moved by 50% downwards since I applied, and
I remember that
yeah,
time. Yeah.
yeah. I knew when I had applied it was already going down, but my motivations were clear that I was going to do this master's, not purely for financial gain, but just for the pure joy of learning.
Okay.
And then when I had finished my master's, I realized, okay, it was fun to do this. I learned quite a bit. Now I can either go into, research, which I realized wasn't for me, and or I go to the industry. And then came the question, which industry? And then I knew that petroleum wasn't didn't seem like the option that I wanted to go full time. Not just only because of the financial implication, but in general, I felt like okay, I had enough learning of that. So I was just open-minded, looking around. Okay, what else options are there, and what options can I take from here? I was just still, curious about other fields, and then I came around across this traineeship, which the main hook for me was not the technical part, but it promised personal development and getting to know yourself as a
Okay.
personal leader. And then I saw
Okay.
that it's attached to this ASML company, which I had
Mm-hmm.
to Google and understand what they did, and that seemed quite cool.
So you didn't know what they did before you actually applied to them?
No, no, I actually didn't know. I just knew that they were, one of the biggest companies for the Amsterdam Exchange Index, and
Okay.
I heard that, they are really, great on research. I just heard through the chemical engineering circles at Delft, but actually
Yeah.
didn't know what it was. So I was pretty much going in. Yeah, I didn't have in my mind that I would be working in semiconductors. I was just like, I want to have a nice technical challenge and
Mm-hmm.
also have a place to grow. And this seemed to meet both the criteria. And yeah, and I'm quite happy with having made that jump.
Okay. There's something you mentioned a lot. You always mentioned open-mindedness. So I think that helped you as well, right, in taking this role. Because like you
Hmm.
said, you had no idea
Hmm.
what the company was doing. But at the end, you ended up there and you took it the way it was and then just grew into the role.
Yeah, yeah, indeed. I think, yeah, open-minded, this definitely helps in this situation to, you just expose yourself to a lot of opportunities. And I had realized, especially with undergrad, I was just limiting myself to two career paths. And then
Mm-hmm.
I learned, okay, if I found something so interesting just by choosing to what else options might be if I just stay open. And I was looking at a wide range of options. I was looking to finance industry, to also
Okay.
chemical engineering industry, or pure
Mm-hmm.
management sector, and also semiconductor was one of them, and also
Okay.
the milk in the industry of Netherlands.
The milk industry.
Friesland
I thought
Campina.
okay, I know the company, yes. I thought I was the one who was a bit more, I would say, crazy in terms of working for different industries. But I think you're you even considered more than me. Okay, that's interesting to know.
Yeah,
So before I actually go into how your application process was
yeah.
and how you actually convinced them
Hmm.
that you had what it took
Yeah,
to do the job, even though you had no experience, whatever
yeah.
in the industry. There's one question I wanted to ask. How was the first day at work? How did you feel? Right. So you got the job
Hmm.
and then you said, okay, fine. Now I got the job. I need to start.
Hmm.
Like, how did you feel once you got that news that you're going to start? And how was when you finished,
Hmm.
or I would say when the transition period was over,
Hmm.
and then you actually started?
Hmm.
How was the first day in the company?
Oh yeah, yeah. When I first heard that I had got it, I was really relieved. And yeah, we'll talk about the selection process, but it was really a lot of steps to get there. I was so excited, like wow, I can't believe I made it, and it was a huge relief. Also, you understand, as a master student transitioning from a student to an adult life for the first job, it's quite a big change and a challenge. So it was quite a nice relief. And then the first day was really interesting. I was really confused what is expected of me and what exactly
Okay.
my role is. I was told, okay, you are going to be the availability engineer for this part of this machine. And there were so many abbreviations and so much jargon flying around. I was completely lost, and I later
I'm sure you also had no idea what machine that was, right?
yeah, indeed, because there's only up to certain information that's available publicly that you can prepare
Yeah.
yourself, and then you're just pushed into this. And I later describe it to my manager as, being pushed into the far side of the pool to help you learn. So
Yeah. Yeah.
that's, I think, would explain how I felt. And yeah, it was quite I would say, like a positive kind of stress, like the stress that
Okay.
makes you grow. So I had that good stress for the first few weeks, where I maintained a book where I just wrote down everything I didn't understand, all the jargon I kept hearing when I was in different meetings. Every meeting was just like, what the hell are they talking about? And I would ask colleagues like, hey, can you summarize? Can you just dumb it down for me? What happened in that meeting? And they would give me a broader explanation, like, oh, this is what, and soon a few weeks. I'm like, oh, okay, that doesn't seem that
Okay.
difficult. So yeah,
Yeah.
it was quite a fun and challenging beginning.
Yeah, okay. Let me just zoom in on that a bit,
Yeah,
just to learn a bit more how you survived the first weeks, because I think those first weeks were really quite important,
yeah,
especially given that you had no idea.
hmm
So I picked up something. You said you asked a lot of your colleagues, right, to
hmm
explain to you what was happening.
yeah.
Did you also like have, I would say, set up meetings with people to try to ask them
Yeah.
what they were doing so you better understand what your role was going to be, or what extra step did you take after that?
Yeah, so I had a two set of challenges in front of me. Not only was I starting for ASML, but I was also
Yeah.
a part of this a group of people together in this personal development program with Ormit, which also
Yeah.
played a huge role. So
Okay.
I had a lot of help, as I had a personal coach who would help me through the 2 years to grow, and he was a huge help for me to transition
Okay.
from student life to like a grown-up life, let's call it. And
Okay.
yeah, so there was a lot of support from that side. And on the other side, so I would visit Ormit, every other week in the beginning in Utrecht, and we would have trainings there throughout the day, and then you also have session with your coach and your team. And then the rest of the time you were at ASML here in Veldhoven, close to Eindhoven. And at ASML, there was also quite a lot of help. I had a buddy who I could go to and ask questions, but he can only help you. He only has certain amount of time that he can help you with. So I
Yeah,
also
exactly.
took a step of like having a meetings, like you mentioned, and
Mm-hmm.
talk to everyone. Hey, can you tell me what you do, and do you have some advice for me now that I'm starting? What would you advise me to do? So I
Okay.
asked that question with separate meetings to get to know people and also to get input. And I also joined some of them to meetings that necessarily weren't in my scope, but
Mm-hmm.
I just joined that to see how they work and what is expected in our role. So
Okay. Just so
that
much
really helped
more
me.
to broaden also your horizon a bit, right?
Yeah, indeed. So
Mm.
that definitely helped with the transition. And keeping that notebook definitely helped, because I look back to it 6 months later, and I was having a chuckle like, oh, what, I didn't know that. So yeah, it was quite a really a sharp learning curve, especially coming from a completely different background with
Different background. Yeah.
yeah, chemical, petroleum, and then in a technical industry where you're talking about everything: physics, chemistry, electronics, math, optics, software. So it goes really the whole spectrum of technology. So it was quite sharp learning curve.
Okay. Well, yeah, sounds really interesting, actually. So Do you regret your decision? Like, if you look back today and you say, okay, yeah, was this the right decision to take to go into a completely different industry that you had no idea about back then? Or would you say you actually did learn a lot in the process?
Oh, I don't regret it at all. I'm really glad I took this jump of both, choosing to apply for ORMIT ASML and also to make the jump from chemical to petroleum, because it just gives you such a, unique experience, and, it just opens you to so many options, and it also exposes you to different learning environments and also
Mm-hmm.
topics. So
Yeah.
I really enjoyed it, and I'm super glad that I made that step, even though like oil was sinking, or even though on paper I wasn't the candidate they were looking for just by the job description. So I'm really happy that I made those two jumps.
Okay. Okay. So I think now is a good time to transition a bit
Yeah.
into how your application process went, right?
Yeah.
So I'm really curious. How were you able to convince them in your cover letter or your CV
Mhm.
um, that, notwithstanding the fact that you had no experience in that area,
Mhm.
that you were the right person for the job?
Oh, well, here I will talk more about Ormit, because they were
Okay.
the ones who I first applied to, and
Yeah.
then they had a partnership with ASML to have a program where I can work. So Ormit was really looking for people with open-minded. Who are just open-minded, and are willing to learn both as a person and also technically, and they were just looking for young people who wanted to chase after development in general. So
Okay.
that helped me already put my foot in the door, and I just talked about what's unique about me, which is diverse study background and interest. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that somehow resonated with them, that okay, this person can do different things in a short time and still
So
be
you
good
can
at
you
it.
can adapt.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's the
Mm.
word I was looking for. So adaptability, I think, was the one thing that really resonated with them,
Okay.
and then we had a lot of testing on our personality. That was a really huge emphasis, and then also as a part of the selection, I had to go to ASML and also convince the managers, have two set of interviews with the managers, and then we had one whole day of selection round where the managers also were spectating how we perform several team related, leadership related, and solo tasks throughout the day, and they were also involved. So it was quite a really interesting selection process. And yeah, I think just showing who you are and what your values are, I think that's what got me in the door, besides the technical side, which is, yeah, this person can demonstrate good technical skills, having finished masters here and having done bachelor's in that. So I think just showing your true values and core, I think that's what stood out to them.
Ah, okay, okay, that's interesting. So once you had the first round with Amit, the next one was with managers at ASML, and I guess the questions were mostly
Mhm.
general then, right? Or did they ask you any specific question that
Um,
required that you'd require in the job, or was more on a top level?
I think they post questions on both levels. They
Okay,
also ask you some technical questions about, hey, what do you know about this certain part of the company, and which challenges do you think we are working on as an industry, in the industry? What are the challenges that you think we are facing, and which of the challenges would you want to work on? And do you have an idea how, if I would give you this assignment, which area would you focus on? So there was
mm,
this not really specific on the details, because they knew that I was coming from a completely different background. And the best thing
Yeah.
about ASML is that there's no other company like it, and it dominates the market. So they don't expect you to have this learning from outside. It's more of, do you have the right attitude? Do you have the right appetite to absorb new stuff and grow? And I
Mm,
think that's what they were testing. And also there were a lot of generic and general questions as well to test your personality. For instance, they asked me one question that I remember is that, are you a perfectionist or are you a generalist? If you had to choose between doing a project, missing out the deadline, or delivering okay quality and meeting the deadline, what would you do? And there were a lot of scenario based questions there.
questions.
Yeah, also about my past. Why did you do chemical, and why do you choose to do petroleum? How do you think you fit here? What makes you, fit in here? Because if you look on paper, you have a really zigzag career path, and yeah, how does
Yeah,
the
yeah.
yeah, you really I really had to tell them my honest side of the story, why I took those choices, and
Mm.
yeah, and just be myself. And I think that was it.
Yeah, I think you mentioned lots of several important points here. So first of all,
Mhm,
just the last one you talked about being yourself. I think it's really important to be yourself
mhm.
in such instances. And then the other one with having the right aptitude, right attitude and aptitude,
Yeah,
because like you just need to have the right mindset
yeah,
in such situations. For example, when they asked you, okay, are you a generalist or a perfectionist?
mhm.
I'm sure you were torn in between, right? What answer should you give?
Yeah, yeah,
Because
yeah.
you didn't know exactly what answer they were looking for.
Exactly.
So in this case, you're like, okay, what should I tell them?
Mhm.
Should I tell them who I am as a person,
Yeah,
or should I tell them what I want them to hear?
indeed.
Right? And this is where it actually comes to you being yourself. Because if you are yourself, you wouldn't really care much of what they want to hear,
Yeah,
right?
that's absolutely true, and I indeed had that thought in my mind, like, hey, as an engineer, one thing we're good at is just reverse engineering stuff, and you try to think, oh, what are they looking for? But in the end, the best way is to just be honest and give the answer, because
Mm,
the selection is not just for you to convince the company, but also the company to convince you. It's like, the match should be on both sides. You don't want to work in an environment where, again, I talk about values, where your values don't match with the company's. So it goes both ways, and that's the best way to see if it's a match, is just be yourself, and then see if they like what you're talking about and what you stand for. Otherwise, even if you decode it and give them the answer they want to hear, you probably won't enjoy working there for a long time.
yeah, wow. I think it's a lot of stuff packed in there. But really good insight. It's I always tell some of my friends, it's not a so the company is not doing you a favor.
Yeah,
It's more like, okay, the company has a pain point that they need someone to help them fix,
yeah,
right? And you are that person or they're looking for that person who would help them fix that pain point.
yeah,
And it's always good to have a match. And to be able to have a match is good to be yourself.
yeah.
And thanks for really stressing that, because it's really important. A lot of times, I have been in situations myself where I was
Mhm.
like, okay, I was asked
Uh-huh.
questions and I was like, okay, what should I answer? Should I tell them who I am as, or should I tell them exactly what I think the answer is?
Yeah,
Or should I tell them um, who I am as a person to that extent, right?
yeah.
So it's really important that
Mhm.
I think it's good to zoom in here to say it's really important that in such situations that you be yourself and just tell them who you are and how you would behave in such situations.
Yeah,
And I'm really happy that you stressed this.
yeah, indeed. And one thing I want to mention here is that a lot of times I see people, I see friends or people who ask for input on job application. They're not really
Mm,
looking for the candidate with the best values across all spectrums. In fact,
yeah.
they don't like that because no one is perfect. So if you pose yourself as a 10 out of 10 on knowledge and 10 out of 10 on behavioral patterns and give them an answer that you want to hear, that is actually a red flag. So don't try to be the best, just try to be yourself. And that's much better than trying to be the ideal candidate, because they are human. They know they can read through bullshit, to put it
Yeah.
like that.
They have like a bullshit reader.
Yeah, it's
I
it.
I have a story on that actually.
Yeah,
I'm going to do a podcast on it later.
yeah,
But I have a really a story that exactly shows that they can read you. I don't
yeah.
know how to do it. I think maybe they have I don't know how. I seriously don't know how to do it. I'm really curious to know how to do it,
Uh-huh.
but they can really read you.
Yeah.
So it doesn't make any sense to fake it in there.
Yeah.
I think you come out on top if you're yourself. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and
Really cool.
to add is, in one of my selection rounds, there was a psychologist sitting down with us and having a conversation and trying to, ask you the same question or test the same value with different set of questions, and
Mhm.
they were really professionals in catching bullshit. And in fact, I know some people who tried to give them the answer they wanted to hear, and
Yeah,
the psychologists, the managers are also in some form partly psychologists, because they work with people and they know how people behave. But the psychologists were really immediate. They caught the bullshit really fast. And there's now we live in times where we have this so many tests like the psychometric test or hexaco. Even technology can just find a bullshit pattern. So yeah,
yeah,
try not to
yeah.
bullshit. Just be yourself, and that's the best you can do.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Just as we finally, I would say, close.
Mhm.
Is there anything that you experienced during your interview process, or during the interview? I would say, how many interviews did you have in general?
For the process through Orbit ASML, there were,
Yes,
I think, we had about 5 rounds.
five
And
rounds. Okay.
yeah, and the final was a full day of assessment. And before this full day of assessment, we had 2 rounds of interviews, one with a psychologist and one with managers at ASML. So yeah, about two, and also a final day. So let's say about 3 sets of interviews.
Okay. So other than all the points we've mentioned, so being open-minded, having the right aptitude and attitude, like
Mhm.
being yourself and not telling them what they want to hear, but just being yourself. Is there any other thing that you experienced during the interview that you think is something that other people could incorporate when they are in such situations?
Well, I would say, besides the things I already mentioned, yeah, I can't really mention something right now. It's not on top of my head. But one thing that really stood out to me in the interview process is that try to show your whole side of yourself. Try not to just put yourself as a technical candidate, but
Okay.
also as a person. A lot of time people just forget that this is a position where you're not only just working on the technical challenge, but also the human challenge. So don't hesitate to show your personality, your hobbies, etc. Try not to just go for the technical job of it, but go for the whole of it, which is also the people side, because you will work with
Mm,
these people for 1/3 of your waking time, and they want to get along and they want to see your personality. So just show your non-technical side as well. I was also involved in selection of candidates within my team, and I was asked for input. And I remember having a conversation with someone, and one thing, a comment that stood out to me is that this person never talks about himself. He only talks about his work, and that definitely makes people ask a question. Okay, he's really qualified, but what is his real personality like? Is he someone we
hmm.
will get along with and have fun besides working, or is he just there for the technology? So just
Yeah.
don't be afraid to show your whole personality.
Yeah, wow, that's really top stuff there. It's quite important because yes, you're always going to be working with people no matter where you are, right? Even if
Yeah,
you're in a lab, you're still going to be working with people.
yeah, exactly.
So, what would you tell someone today, right? So you
Hmm.
know the corona situation.
Yeah.
like people are really struggling to find jobs, and a lot of people are facing, I would say, a similar situation as you faced back
Hmm.
then.
Yeah.
In terms of, okay, there are some industries that are hiring,
Hmm.
some other industries are not.
Hmm.
Maybe the person is interested in one industry, but that industry he's interested in is not
Hmm.
hiring.
Hmm.
What would you say to a general atmosphere, like to someone out there who is finding it difficult to find a job?
Yeah, I was interestingly a few weeks ago. I was listening to a podcast on BBC where people were asked about the same question. The experts in different industries were asked,
Mm,
and I think I also concur with them. I would say if you don't find something that's exactly what you want, try to look to industries or areas close to it and try to adapt in it. So, for instance, if you are someone who's passionate both about mathematics and mechanical engineering, there might not be openings for mechanical engineers, but maybe you will still find the same joy of working in data science, for instance, and try not to lose your skills by giving up on it, but try to find something close and just explore what else you could do. Because trust me, at the beginning, just searching for a job by yourself, the options seem really little. But if you keep
yeah,
your eyes open and keep looking what else you can apply your skill set, then you will survive the bad market situation, let's put it like that. And then
yeah.
when the time is right, you still have the skill set, maybe not exactly the ones that you wanted, but you still have the skill set. You learned additional skills and then go to your dream sector or job. And then you also come with additional experience. So look around, try to find possibilities, and I would say just explore, talk to people, reach out to people. And I think that's would be my only advice.
Awesome, awesome. I'm really curious to ask you this question,
Hmm.
even though I did not want to ask you that. Uh, how was the process before you actually got this interview? How many companies did you apply to? Did you get many rejects? How, like, what did you do to keep you, I would say, up and going in your application process?
Yeah, well, I had a really strange approach at the beginning. I was so afraid that my skill set is not something that would be applicable for other industries, that I
Mm,
wasn't even applying for jobs. I was just applying for internship positions, or not full time work, but like part time, or just 6 months internship. So I
interesting.
yeah.
So, sorry to to come in here.
Yeah.
So you're scared of applying for jobs because you thought that you didn't have the skills to apply or
Yeah.
to go into the industries that are available then.
Yeah, and indeed,
Okay.
that was my fear, and had started applying for these internship positions 6 months before graduation,
Okay.
and then I don't remember how many, but I think over 30 or 50 applications or so, just on the
Okay.
internships or research related positions, and the majority of them didn't reply or didn't have the opening then. And at some
Okay.
point, I said, okay, why am I going for the intermediate option? This is what I want to do. I want to work in a full time environment with a new technical challenge. And and I was also adapting too much of the application. Like, oh, I studied chemicals, so somehow this relates to you. I was not putting out my true self or true application out there, and also not
Okay.
going for the job, but instead going for something intermediate. So I had a switch, like a gear switch in my brain, and I was like, okay, this is, I will just be my honest self, and I will apply for exactly what I want. And and then I just went for direct applications, and I was lucky. I think I was parallelly applying for 5 companies full time around Christmas time, and
Okay.
this was the company that replied me after New Year's, and we had the process go really fast, and really enjoyed having the conversations and the tone that they had, and they really cared about people, and they were just refreshing. So I stopped going through with other applications, and got the job. But like everything else, it takes quite a few attempts to find the right thing for yourself.
Yeah. I think you're actually on the lucky side if you
Yeah.
if you just ended up with five.
Oh,
But
but
but but
if
good
you look at
but
the
good to
50
know.
before, it's
Oh yeah, if I look at the 50 before,
yeah,
but it's just interesting that you took that approach in the beginning of not putting yourself out there,
yeah,
but rather applying only to internships. But it's
yeah,
good that you gradually in the process learn
yeah,
and then adapted. If there's one thing I would take out of this conversation that I've had with you, is that ability to adapt to whatever situation you find yourself in.
yeah,
And I think it's really important. It just shows how flexible you are and open minded, which is what you actually said in the beginning, to adapt. And that is what I think has helped you in your current role. And I'm sure now you actually know um,
yeah.
what's going on in your company after being there for a while, and I've learned through, I would say, the 2 or 2.5 years been there. So final question,
Yeah.
what do you do as an availability and reliability engineer?
Well, yeah, I can't obviously talk about the details because it's confidential
It's
information.
confidential. Yeah.
ASML is a company that makes machines that make chips, which is used in anything that you see around you, electronic. So your mobiles or watches, digital watches, TV, everything. So we
Okay.
try to push this thing called the Moore's law, which is to decrease the progression of how small the chip gets as time goes by. So
Okay.
as a part of that, we make this machine which takes like 6 jumbo jets to ship and assemble it to customers ranging from Intel to Samsung. And as a part of availability and reliability engineering, your responsibility is to look at what is blocking the machine from doing its job, staying available or staying productive 100% of the time. And this could range from technical challenges to people related challenges. So
Mm-hmm.
with knowledge or sometimes how the structure or how the knowledge is spreading, to diving into the technical, the optics or laser physics side of it. So it ranges
Okay.
from people to technical side, and you need
Yeah.
to find a way to go and try to solve and influence this problem. You are not the one who is completely solving it. There are a lot of experts and teams, tens of teams or with hundreds of people in them who have this
Yeah.
expertise, but you need to influence them without having direct authority. You're not a senior management or executive manager to ask them to do this, but you need to influence without having power, and try to take out any problems in the path to prevent the machine from not being reliable and not being productive 100% of the time. So it's a pretty open
Okay.
job description, and just find a way
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
solve that obstacle is how I would put it.
Okay. I've learned something today. Yeah. Yeah. Rahman, any last thoughts? Just few words.
Well, I would just, again, as talking on the same theme, I would just tell the listener, don't undermine yourself. The skills that you have are more than the courses that you have done or the certifications you have. So try to
Mm-hmm.
dig deep and try to see, recognize your strengths and what else you could do and what other strengths you have, especially in this strange time. Personal time and also in the industry. So yeah, just dig deep and try to find the additional value that you have in you and the potential in you. And
Yeah.
yeah, that's all I would say. And thank you
Wow.
for having
Okay.
me.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah,
I
you're
think
welcome.
this you're my first guest, so
Mhm.
I'm really I'm really happy that you accepted to come on this, and I learned a lot today, and I
Yeah,
hope that our listeners out there can actually pick one or two things from the conversation we've had today,
yeah,
to help them in their journey.
yeah. Thank
So
you.
once again, thank you, Raman, and then all the best in your future role. Right?
Yeah,
Bye bye.
thank you. And maybe we'll have a second round sometime in the future. And
Yeah.
just to add, if any of you wants to reach out to me, please feel free to contact me on my LinkedIn. If you just type my name and put ASML in there, you will find me. So feel free to connect and send me a message if you have questions.
Okay, I think I would probably also put your LinkedIn link to my page so they can easily contact you if they want to.
Yeah,
But
sure.
great. Yeah, thanks for offering that.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Thank you then.
Yeah, thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you once again for listening to today's episode. If you got any value from this podcast, please hit the subscribe button to stay updated when new episodes are published. Oh, and remember, sharing is caring. Share the podcast with a friend to make sure he or she is not missing out. And as always, you can find all the tools and the templates you need on blisscareer.de. Until then, I wish you a wonderful time ahead. Bye-bye and stay safe.